Captain Jack Reynolds tried desperately not to stare at the 12-foot-tall gelatinous blob that was apparently the Secretary of Diplomatic Affairs. The Galactic Council chamber, a massive, ostentatious dome with too many unnecessary holographic displays, felt like being inside a corporate PowerPoint presentation designed by someone who'd discovered animation effects for the first time. Species designation Earth Human, Captain Jackson Reynolds, announced the council moderator, a spindly being with skin like polished copper. Welcome to your official introduction as the 127th member species of the Grand Galactic Federation. Jack stepped forward, counting to 3 before speaking just as the diplomatic corps had drilled into him. On behalf of Earth and humanity, we are honored to join this esteemed gathering of— Yes, interrupted Counselor Vex Trill, a reptilian with far too many teeth. We've heard these speeches 126 times before. Let's skip to the integration protocols. The chamber erupted in what Jack assumed was laughter, though it sounded more like a combination of squeaking hinges and digestive distress. Apologies, Jack said, forcing a smile. I wasn't aware formality had fallen out of fashion in the galaxy. The Secretary's gelatinous form rippled in what might have been amusement. Earth Human, your species' application for membership was unique. Most concerning was your extensive military infrastructure. No other joining race has maintained such aggressive posturing. We call it preparedness, Jack said carefully. Earth has a complex history of conflicts, and we've learned that. You're delightfully paranoid, chirped a bird-like being from the upper tier. The statistical probability of an unprovoked attack on a Federation member is less than 0.0076%. Your species dedicates nearly 4% of your resources to defense. The chamber again filled with that uncomfortable sound of alien laughter. Jack's smile remained fixed while his knuckles turned white behind his back. The human fear index is the highest we've recorded in 3,000 cycles, announced the moderator, triggering a holographic chart to appear above Jack's head. Look at these fascinating metrics: obsession with apocalyptic scenarios, persistent anxiety about invasion, and an entertainment culture fixated on conflict narratives. Jack stood rigid as the council members chuckled at humanity's expense. This wasn't diplomacy, it was a cosmic roast. And somehow he knew this was only the beginning. 2 months into Earth's peaceful integration, Jack found himself explaining for what felt like the 17th time why humans couldn't simply deactivate their early warning defense grid. Counselor Kreltak, Jack said, addressing the pompous, 8-limbed diplomat who'd become his personal tormentor. Earth's history is marked by sudden, devastating conflicts. Our preparations aren't about aggression, they're about survival. Kreltak's upper limbs waved dismissively. Captain Reynolds, each of your historical world wars would qualify as merely a provincial skirmish by galactic standards. Your species' preoccupation with conflict scenarios is both primitive and, frankly, tedious. Lieutenant Mira Patel, Jack's assistant and the only other human in the room, muttered under her breath, says the species whose homeworld has never experienced so much as a bar fight. Kreltak's auditory membranes fluttered. Did your subordinate just imply our evolutionary path toward peaceful coexistence is somehow inferior to your violent one? Not at all, Jack interjected quickly. Lieutenant Patel was simply noting the different perspectives our histories provide. Mira's expression remained professionally neutral, agreeing to. Though Jack recognized the look in her eyes, the same one she'd worn during their academy days when plotting tactical maneuvers that inevitably left their opponents baffled. Perhaps, said Mira with delicate precision. But the Council might appreciate that preparing for worst-case scenarios is simply how humans express their commitment to long-term survival. It's rather like how the Zelvonian collective stockpiles 17 years' worth of digestive lubricants. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. That's entirely different, sputtered a Zelvonian representative. Our biological necessities are not comparable to your weapons systems. The meeting deteriorated from there, ending with the Council's unanimous decision. Earth would dismantle 80% of its military infrastructure within one standard year or face sanctions. As they left the chamber, Jack's communicator chirped with priority clearance from Earth Command. "This isn't going well," Jack muttered to Mira as they found a secure area. "That's the understatement of the galactic cycle," she replied, activating the privacy shield on her datapad. "They're treating us like paranoid children." Jack's message to Earth was carefully coded but clear, proceeding with Protocol Cassandra. Council resistance exceeds projections. Recommend contingency Delta. Their peaceful integration continued with forced smiles and thinly veiled condescension from the Council. Each week brought new demands for disarmament, with humanity's protests dismissed as primitive anxiety. Jack watched as Earth reluctantly dismantled orbital platforms and stood down alert squadrons, at least officially. "They think we're backward because we prepare for threats," Mira observed during one particularly frustrating council session. "They've been at peace so long they've forgotten how quickly things can change." Jack nodded grimly. "And something tells me they're about to get a harsh reminder." The first reports came from the outer colonies, garbled distress signals from worlds so distant many council members couldn't place them on a map without assistance. Jack sat through emergency briefings where counselors dismissed the incidents as localized piracy or equipment malfunctions. 17 colonies have gone completely silent, Jack stated flatly during one such meeting. "That's not a malfunction, that's a pattern." Krell-Tak's appendages waved dismissively. "Always looking for enemies in the shadows, Captain Reynolds. This is precisely the paranoid thinking we've been trying to help your species overcome." 3 days later, the Marconian homeworld, a major council power, went dark. The council chamber, normally a showcase of elegant decorum, devolved into chaos. Species representatives shouted over each other while emergency alerts flashed across every display. Jack and Mira exchanged knowing glances as the moderator struggled to maintain order. "We have confirmation," announced the secretary, its gelatinous form pulsing with distress. "An unknown species has bypassed the Marconian defense systems and neutralized planetary communications. The attack lasted less than 6 hours." "Unknown species?" Jack questioned. "You've mapped the entire galaxy. How can there be an unknown species capable of taking down a core world?" The room fell uncomfortably silent before a scientist from the Knowledge Ministry spoke. They appeared from the void sector, the uncharted space beyond the galactic rim. "We've designated them Void Harbingers based on intercepted communications." Grainy footage appeared on the central display, massive ships, obsidian and angular, with energy signatures unlike anything in the Federation database. They moved with terrible purpose, bypassing defensive systems with contemptuous ease. "Surely our combined fleet can address this incursion," suggested a representative from the unified colonies. The military coordinator, a position Jack had discovered was largely ceremonial, looked physically ill. "Our combined fleet exists primarily for ceremonial and trade protection purposes. We haven't maintained significant combat capabilities for over 700 cycles." 700, Jack started, then collected himself. "Counselors, how exactly have you been enforcing galactic security?" "Diplomatic pressure," replied Krell-Tak, without a trace of irony, "and economic sanctions when necessary." Mira's laugh was short and bitter. "I'm sure the Void Harbingers will be devastated when you freeze their bank accounts." As if responding to her sarcasm, the displays updated with fresh information, 3 more systems under attack, 2 already silent. The Harbingers' tactics were ruthlessly efficient communication systems first, then power grids, then methodical ground assaults with drones that overwhelmed local security forces. "This council has existed for thousands of years," Jack said quietly. "All that time you've been dismantling weapons, disbanding armies, convincing yourselves the peace would last forever." The secretary's form rippled anxiously. "It did last. Until now." "And now," Jack finished, "you have no defenses, no battle-ready ships, and no soldiers who've ever faced actual combat. For the first time since Earth joined the Council, no one laughed at humanity's paranoia. Instead, the counselors looked at Jack with something new in their many-faceted eyes: desperation. "Captain Reynolds," said the moderator, audio receptors quivering, "Earth was instructed to dismantle its military capabilities as part of integration. Please tell us your species had the good sense to delay that process." Jack exchanged a look with Mira before activating his secure comm. "Admiral Ortiz? This is Reynolds. It's time for Protocol Lazarus." "You lied to us," Kreltak's accusation echoed through the emergency council chamber. "Earth never dismantled its defenses." "We reclassified them," Jack corrected, standing before the hastily assembled council. "Scientific research vessels, deep space exploratory platforms, asteroid mining operations, all technically accurate descriptions." The massive display behind Jack showed a fleet of Earth ships emerging from concealed positions throughout human territory. Some had been disguised as commercial vessels, others hidden in gas giants or asteroid fields. All were now revealing their true nature: warships built for combat. The Council ordered disarmament, and Earth appeared to comply, Mira added. "We just had different definitions of disarmed." Admiral Helena Ortiz's hologram materialized beside Jack. A compact woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen more battles than most Council species had seen sunsets. She nodded curtly to the assembled aliens. "Counselors, I am Admiral Helena Ortiz, Earth Defense Command. We've been monitoring the Void Harbinger advance and have prepared countermeasures. With your permission, we'll deploy immediately to defend remaining Council worlds." "Permission?" sputtered the moderator. "You maintained military forces in direct violation of integration protocols." "And thank every god ever invented that we did," retorted Ortiz. "Otherwise, we'd all be sitting here waiting for those ships to arrive while discussing strongly worded diplomatic objections." The secretary's gelatinous form rippled with what might have been indignation or relief. "How significant are these forces you've maintained?" Jack nodded to Mira, who activated a secure data stream. The Council displays filled with specifications that caused several representatives to emit startled noises. 7 battle groups, Ortiz explained. Over 200 combat-ready vessels, 40,000 trained personnel, and defense systems covering all human-occupied worlds. "Impossible," whispered Kreltak. "We've been monitoring Earth's activities. Our sensors detected no such buildup." Jack couldn't help the slight smile that crossed his face. Humanity has millennia of experience hiding military assets from enemies with superior technology. Your monitoring systems are impressive, but they only see what they're designed to see. And you're quite predictable in what you look for, added Mira. The council chambers erupted in overlapping voices, accusations of treachery mixed with desperate questions about Earth's capabilities. Admiral Ortiz's hologram waited patiently for the noise to subside. "Counselors," she finally said, her voice cutting through the chaos, "you can debate the ethics of our deception after we've dealt with the immediate threat. Right now I need authorization to move Earth forces through Council space and coordinate with your remaining defensive assets." The Secretary and Moderator exchanged looks before the Secretary's form pulsed once in agreement. "Granted, Admiral. What do you require from us?" "Complete access to your communication networks, star charts with particular emphasis on the void sector borders, and any data you've collected on Harbinger technology or tactics." "You already have a plan," observed Kreltak, 8 limbs twitching nervously. Admiral Ortiz's hologram smiled grimly. "Humans always have a plan for things going terribly wrong, Counselor. It's what you've been mocking us for since we arrived." "They're doing what?" Counselor Vex Trill's scales flushed a deep crimson as he struggled to comprehend Admiral Ortiz's latest report. The holographic tactical display showed Earth vessels executing maneuvers that seemed to defy both logic and several laws of physics. Some appeared to be deliberately venting reactor plasma while others were flying directly toward Harbinger vessels at speeds that couldn't possibly allow for course correction. Unconventional warfare, Jack explained, trying not to sound smug. The Harbingers have superior technology, but they follow predictable attack patterns. Mira highlighted several engagement zones. Look here, and here they expect rational responses based on preserving assets and minimizing casualties. Our ships are doing exactly what no rational military strategist would suggest. Because humans aren't entirely rational, muttered Krell Tak, though the usual contempt in his voice had been replaced by something close to wonder. On the display, Earth ships executed what the Council species were now calling madness maneuvers, deliberate collisions that somehow turned into boarding actions, the EMP blasts that disabled both enemy vessels and Earth's own systems simultaneously, and decoy ships packed with explosives rather than personnel. "This is barbaric," whispered a representative from the unified colonies, watching as human Marines in exo-armor physically breached a Harbinger vessel's hull with mining equipment. "This is effective," corrected Admiral Ortiz through the comm. "The Harbingers expected opposition from your standard defense protocols, which they've already analyzed and countered. They never prepared for opponents who would sacrifice ships to win engagements." The tactical display updated, showing a Harbinger fleet retreating from the Proxima sector after losing 6 capital ships to what appeared to be civilian mining vessels retrofitted with crude but devastating weapons. "Captain Reynolds," the Secretary's form rippled urgently, "your ships in the Arcturus sector are employing some kind of primitive projectile weapons. Our sensors indicate they're firing metal slugs. Not energy weapons, not guided munitions, just metal objects at high velocity." Jack nodded. "Railguns, magnetically accelerated projectiles. No energy signature for their shields to detect and counter, no guidance systems to hack. That's practically Stone Age technology." Krell Tak protested. "Stone Age would be throwing rocks," Mira corrected with a straight face. "This is at least Bronze Age. Maybe Iron." As the Council watched in disbelief, humanity's outdated tactics continued to confound the Harbingers. Earth forces used jammers based on obsolete radio technologies that the advanced enemy had no protocols for. Marine units deployed with mechanized armor that operated without networked systems, making them immune to the digital attacks that had crippled Council security forces. Most shocking to the Council was the human capacity for coordinated adaptation. When the Harbingers countered one tactic, Earth forces would immediately switch to another, seemingly prepared for every eventuality. "It's as if you've rehearsed this exact scenario," said the military coordinator, watching in awe as Earth ships executed a perfectly synchronized pincer movement around a Harbinger battle group. "Not this exact scenario," Jack explained. "But we've war-gamed thousands of invasion scenarios. Aliens with superior technology, faster-than-light capabilities, unknown weapons, all standard training for our officers." "For fun," added Mira with a smile that made several counselors uncomfortable, "we sometimes run simulations where we have to defend Earth with nothing but commercial fishing vessels and agricultural equipment." The Secretary's form undulated in what might have been discomfort. "Your species simulates its own destruction, recreationally?" "We prefer to think of it as creative problem-solving under pressure," Jack replied. "And right now that morbid hobby is saving your worlds." On the tactical display, a notification flashed, "Harbinger command vessel located." Admiral Ortiz's hologram straightened. "Council members, we've identified their central command structure. I'm coordinating a joint strike with all available Earth forces. If this works, the Harbinger fleet will lose cohesion." "And if it doesn't?" asked Krell Tak quietly. Jack met the alien's eyes steadily. "Then humanity goes down fighting, Counselor. As we've always been prepared to do." A new understanding. The Void Harbinger command ship didn't so much explode as implode. collapsing in on itself like a dying star before releasing a shock wave that temporarily disrupted communications across 3 sectors. When the Council displays came back online, the remaining Harbinger vessels were in disarray, some already retreating toward the galactic rim. In the Council chamber, silence reigned for a full 30 seconds before erupting into sounds that Jack now recognized as cheers and celebrations across a dozen different biological configurations. Admiral Ortiz's hologram flickered back into existence, her uniform singed and a fresh cut visible above her right eye. Counselors, the immediate threat has been neutralized. Harbinger forces are in retreat across all sectors. We're establishing pursuit groups to ensure they don't regroup. The Secretary's gelatinous form pulsed with colors Jack had never seen it display before. Admiral Ortiz, Captain Reynolds, Lieutenant Patel, the Council owes Earth a debt that cannot be easily quantified. We misjudged your species' preparedness as paranoia. A reasonable mistake, Jack replied diplomatically, though he couldn't quite keep the satisfaction from his voice. Peace is always preferable to war. Humanity agrees with that principle completely. But peace maintained without the ability to defend it is merely vulnerability waiting to be exploited, finished Krell Tak, all 8 limbs moving in a gesture of profound respect. Your Earth philosopher Sun Tzu wrote something similar, did he not? Jack blinked in surprise. You've been reading human military texts? Since the attack began, admitted Krell Tak. Most enlightening material. Particularly this art of war, and something called Ender's Game, which I initially believed was a sporting manual. Mira coughed to cover a laugh. 3 days later, the full council convened for an emergency session. The chamber had been reconfigured, with Earth representatives now seated in a position of prominence. Admiral Ortiz stood beside Jack and Mira, her actual presence rather than a hologram indicating the importance of the occasion. The Galactic Council hereby establishes the Interspecies Defense Initiative, announced the moderator, with Earth as its founding authority. All member species will contribute resources and personnel for training under human military protocols. Jack leaned toward Mira. From paranoid primitives to drill sergeants of the galaxy in less than a week. Not bad. Mia. Captain Jackson Reynolds, continued the moderator, you are hereby appointed as Director of Interspecies Military Cooperation, effective immediately. The chamber filled with the sound of appendages striking surfaces, the council equivalent of applause. Jack stood, nodding his acknowledgement of the appointment. The council has existed for thousands of years in relative peace, Jack said when the noise subsided. That peace was valuable and worth preserving. But humanity has always understood that lasting peace requires strength and readiness. We look forward to sharing that perspective with our galactic neighbors. As the session concluded, Krell Tak approached the Earth delegation, all 8 limbs performing an intricate gesture that Jack recognized as the highest form of respect in the diplomat's culture. I once found your species' obsession with preparing for war to be primitive, Krell Tak admitted. Now I understand that humans don't fear war because you are backwards. You fear it because you understand, better than any of us, exactly what it costs. And what it takes to prevent it, added Admiral Ortiz. Perhaps, Krell Tak said with what might have been a smile on his alien features, a touch of paranoia has its uses after all. Jack nodded, watching as council species who had laughed at humanity's fears now eagerly sought out human officers for advice and training. We've always known that peace isn't the natural state of the universe, Counselor. It's something you build, maintain, and sometimes fight for. From the chamber windows, the stars of the galaxy stretched out before them, no longer silent with the absence of communication, but alive with the coordinated efforts of 100 species learning, at long last, that preparing for the worst was the surest way to hope for the best.